What is up, Pit fans? Flinty Sanguine coming to you with another recipe of mine that you may or may not enjoy. It's a slightly controversial recipe, and I will tell you why in just a moment. This recipe is Flinty's Death Mountain Chili. Now, why is it called Death Mountain Chili? I'll tell you why. It's because it's freaking hot. I was going to call it Volcano Chili, and I was like, it seems just so mundane, like volcano chili, cool. So I decided to name it after my favorite yet fictional volcano, which is Death Mountain, because I'm kind of a nerd and I love The Legend of Zelda. So anyway, right now I'm just going to go over what you need to make this recipe for yourself if you decide to. So what you are going to need is a very large saucepan. I guess it's not very large, but just kind of your average one, with a lid. You're going to need that. You don't have to have your barbecue fired up or your charcoal grill, whatever you want, but I recommend that if you have one. I currently don't, because my wonderful pit and smokehouse are about 50 miles that way. But what I do have is my cast iron skillet, and you can really use any pan that you have for this. Just you need a frying pan of some kind, and you can do this. So why is this recipe controversial, you may be asking yourself, and this is why. Because I call it chili. What? Yeah. The thing is, the base for this recipe is baked beans, and that is sort of a faux pas in the chili community. But you know what? It's my recipe, and I can call it sugar cookie soft tacos if I want to, because it's mine. So I'm calling it chili, and if you don't like it, you make it anyway, and this is chili, and it is. Alright, so what you're going to need is, besides the equipment, you'll need your trusty old knife. Oh yeah, use whatever knife you want. Anyway, so start off with, you're going to need a 55-ounce can of baked beans. I used to use the original baked beans from this particular brand, but the thing is, when I use the original, the only difference between that and the home style here is that this has bacon and brown sugar already added. When I was using the original, I was adding a 1/4 cup of brown sugar to the recipe, and then I was like, well, this one already has brown sugar in it, plus there's bacon, and bacon makes everything better. So I was like, you know what, I'm kind of going to switch it up, and I'm just going to use it home style. So that's what I like to use. Everybody knows this brand. It's around, it's cheap, it's great. Alright, so after that, you're going to need a little pork tenderloin. This one's about just over a pound, I think, or yeah, just over a pound. I like to use this one because it is relatively inexpensive. It's pretty cheap, but it also comes in like a little marinade. This is the peppercorn flavor, and this works just absolutely perfect. If you don't want to use a tenderloin, I've made this recipe before with like bratwurst or a good smoked sausage, like a kielbasa, something like that. You can use that too. The technique is the same. Everything's the same. But this works out so good, and this is what I like to use. Now, the one thing that's going to be a little bit different this time that I make this is I usually use a ground sirloin, just some kind of lean ground beef, usually about 1 pound to 1.25 pounds. You could use ground chuck or something like that, but you really don't need the extra fat for any flavor. There is so much flavor going into this dish. Excuse me. It's just ridiculous. So, yeah, you can really use whatever, but what I'm using this time, I can't believe I'm even saying this, I was gifted this by a person, and I never look a gift horse in the mouth, so I decided, like, yeah, take it, but I'm like, what the heck am I going to use this for, being me? I got 1 pound of ground turkey, and I thought to myself, I'll throw that in the chili, that should work out pretty good. And so it's just 1 pound of ground turkey, but normally I would use 1 pound to 1.25 pounds of a ground sirloin. Alright, so we got that, and then you will need not 1 but 2 packs of taco seasoning. You can use whichever taco seasoning you want, but you need 2 packs, and you will know why later on. You also need some butter. You won't use this whole thing, but you're gonna need maybe 2 tablespoons of butter. You can use oil if you'd like to. I prefer not to use oil because it's chili, and with all the stuff going into this, there's enough grease going on. But it's kind of good if the butter burns off a little bit, because then it just adds that flavor. So I recommend using butter, but if you want to use oil to saute things and all that stuff, that's perfectly fine. You will need some mustard. You can use any mustard you want. You actually don't have to use mustard, but I like to use mustard. And the stone ground, the Engelhofer's mustard, is my favorite. But you can use any kind of mustard, just plain yellow, grape pawn, whatever you want to. You're only going to need about like 2 tablespoons, and I'm not kidding. We're going to fill this pot pretty much nearly to the brim, or close to it. So this is a really good thing to make if you're going to a potluck, to a party or something like that. You're going to have leftovers, is what I'm saying. I make this by myself, and I portion it out, put it in the fridge, and this is dinner for me for 5-6 days. You know, I can take it to work for lunch and stuff like that, and it's just it's a good thing to do, especially on these hard times right now. Spend $20-25 or something, make this, and you got food for days. You get a little tired of eating the same thing all the time, but it's good stuff. So next, you're going to need a beefsteak tomato. Just one. This one's a little bit small, but when I went to the grocery store, I had about 6 beefsteak tomatoes to choose from. So this is the one that I got. I prefer beefsteak just because of the substance that's in it. You can use the Roma tomato, you can use those little vine-ripened tomatoes if you want. You can use whatever tomato you want to. I prefer beefsteak because it really holds up well after you cut it up, and it goes through like a long simmer process. I recommend a beefsteak, but like I said, the only one I wouldn't use is like a cherry tomato, because you're going to be here for 4 days trying to cut up enough to make this dish. This was also gifted to me. This looks like a kind of medium yellow onion, and this will be just fine. I usually get a slightly larger white onion to make this, but you can use, once again, any onion you want to. The only ones I would recommend against are any sweet onions or red onions. I love red onions, but they're not really, they're not for this. But if you really want to use a red onion, then get right on ahead. So yeah, one large onion. You'll also need a couple cloves of garlic, and I am using 2 cloves, 2 whole, or not cloves, bulbs. 2 bulbs, because these are relatively small. Like now, if you get one of those like super bulbs that almost takes up your whole hand, then obviously you use 1 bulb. But there's a lot of garlic, and if you really don't like garlic, then don't use it. So that's pretty much it. And now I'm hearing, but Flint, why are you calling this Death Mountain chili? I thought it was going to be spicy. Oh, it's going to be spicy. And the way we're going to do that, there's not 1 but 2 fresh jalapenos, and these guys are pretty big. And honestly, anybody who knows me knows I love hot food. If I could actually eat fire, I would probably do it. But yeah, 2 big fresh jalapenos, kind of necessary. Well, actually, let me give you a little background on my relationship with the jalapeno. Even though I eat ridiculously hot stuff that, would kill most people, the humble jalapeno is actually one of my favorite peppers, not because of the heat, but because of the flavor. And when a lot of people eat stuff that's hot, they don't really get the flavor. It just tastes hot. Like you don't get the actual flavor profile on your palate because you're not really accustomed or don't like hot food. So you can use pickled jalapenos if you'd like to, if that's what you have on hand. That's what you want to do, go right ahead. I always use fresh, and I feel like it just works out better. So yeah, so we're using 2 fresh jalapenos now. Now I'm hearing you're gonna say, but Flynn, my gosh, 2 fresh jalapenos to an entire pot of chili, that's hardly worthy of being named after a volcano. And you people are exactly right. That is why we have these. I don't know if you can see that. My camera's over there. But these are dehydrated, dried out ghost peppers. These little guys will melt your freaking teeth. This is another one of my favorite, if not my favorite pepper. Also, once again, because of the flavor, but those had some heat. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say about it. And I'm here, well, Flint, I don't like spicy food. And don't put the peppers in it. You'll be fine, right? So, yeah, like I said, so this is going to be just about the end of this video. I'm going to do a separate video here in just a little bit of me actually putting all this together, because you can't just throw all these ingredients in the pot, simmer it for 4 hours, and it come out right. There is a step to cooking each individual ingredient, with the exception of a few. But all of those steps really, really lend to the end flavor of this chili. So I am going to do my very, very best to make a sequential video on my phone to show you exactly all of the steps and everything, so you know the ingredients now, you know what's going on. And also, just realized, there's a sharp tax out there watching this. Probably have noticed I haven't mentioned any spices except for the taco seasoning. And that is correct. I do not put any spices in this at all. No salt, no pepper, no anything besides the taco seasoning until all of the ingredients are in there and it's simmering. And you just give it a little taste. The only ingredients I would add, and the reason I don't add them before, is because there are so many variables going on in the ingredients that you're already putting in there. And if you put a bunch of spices in there, it's really easy to add them whenever you want. It is so freaking hard to take them out. So the only things I would really ever add at the end, like I said, while it's all simmering, everything's in there, all the flavors are coming together, the only thing I would ever add is either salt, pepper, but like the peppercorn flavor off that pork loin is usually pretty good. You don't need pepper. You may need some salt. I generally will just put like a little bit of salt in the bowl whenever I actually serve it up. Like if whoever's eating it decides they want salt, just right, good. The only thing I would ever use is either some ground mustard powder, some paprika, and paprika is kind of important because a lot of people think paprika and they think spicy, and yes, it is a little bit spicy. But the main thing, the main real reason you ever want to use paprika is it has a very earthy flavor. So when you eat this or taste it, or anything really that you're cooking that has like a sauce or something, and you feel like that flavor is just like nearly there, but you taste it and like that, it's like the flavor's kind of floating away, dash some paprika in there, and I'm telling you, it's going to bring it right back. That's just my personal advice. You couldn't disagree with me. I may be wrong, but for me, I just throw some paprika on things. Anyway, there's an onion in this, but you might need some onion powder. It's possible. I mean, that onion's a little bit smaller. Might not be the onion that you wanted. You can always throw some onion powder in there. And also sometimes when it needs a little bit more zip to it, not more spice, but just a little, it's missing a little bit of that tangy flavor, I might throw some apple cider vinegar in there. Or possibly some Worcestershire sauce. But like I said, whatever, just taste it while it's simmering, while everything is put together. Taste it, add what you want to get the flavor that you want, and then you'll be good. But I'm just saying, do not add anything extra until it's in that simmering phase. And generally, after putting all of this together and everything's in there, I usually simmer it for about an hour, hour and a half, or something like that. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is going to make another video right after this, and hopefully it'll be a nice, quick video, so I'm not chopping stuff up in front of you. You all know how to do that. I'll just be showing you the actual steps and how to put this together. So get ready, everyone, for Flinty's Death Mountain Chili. All right. I have to walk all the way back here to turn my phone off because I'm all alone.